I do have with me in studio, before we actually take those proceedings live, political editor Mzwandile Mbeje, who's joining me in studio here. So Mzwandile, quite an interesting turn of events, right? To find out that the ceremony that we were invited to by the DA is not necessarily what we were promised.
Well, I don't know whether the DA stretched itself a bit too far in terms of giving an ultimatum to the president. But clearly, once they said that, we expected perhaps much bigger than what's happening. But I think the ANC, perhaps, I don't know.
Yeah, let's go there live, Mzwandile,
is ready
because
to respond.
They are ready to respond, and we are eager to take you live there. Let's listen in.
Of the Government of National Unity. We do want to respond to that as the African National Congress. We will look at the statement in its totality. But there are certain things that have got to be rebutted. One of which is an indication that the national dialogue is just but one event in the history of South Africa, and that it is unlikely to yield consensus or what we call social impact and compacting with the people of South Africa following that national dialogue, which will be successful. We also do wish to remind South African people that ours is a country that has always been embedded and actually driven by the spirit of negotiation, dialogue, consensus seeking. All the way from the formation of the African National Congress in the Vryhoek Church in Mangaung, the modern day Mangaung, and all the way to Kliptown 1955, where South Africans from all walks of life convened in the Congress of the People to come to an agreement about a South Africa that they dream for, and articulated those dreams in the form of what we now know are the clauses in the Freedom Charter document. South Africa, once more using the power of consensus seeking and negotiation, went on to negotiate the democratic future through the CODESA negotiations, which at some point were disrupted by right-wing elements, but South African people remained resilient. You will remember the AWB and associated right-wing organizations that have now resurfaced again, attempted to disrupt the negotiations, CODESA negotiations in Kempton Park. That process produced what we now know as a negotiated settlement in South Africa. And that process propelled us to have a new democratic government, and all the way to the constitution-making process in 1996 that gave birth to our constitution, which is a revered constitution. And so South Africa is well alive and is accustomed to a culture of dialogue and engagement. The ANC won't comment on matters that are of important but a technical nature or operational nature, because we are not government. We are a movement of the people of South Africa. We are represented in government. It is government through the office of the presidency that can comment on matters such as the cost of that dialogue. But you cannot dismiss the significance and the profoundness of dialogue in South Africa. The Democratic Alliance has also said something in the direction of not going to support the passing of certain budget votes, particularly those pertaining to the Minister of Human Settlements, Thembi Simelane, and the Minister of Higher Education, Buhle Ngabane. Well, I suppose they do reserve that right. It happens all the time in Parliament. It is an attempt to disrupt the workings of the Government of National Unity. We note that. But secondly, the ANC caucus also reserves the right, should it require to do so, not to support the budget votes where the President has appointed DA ministers. But because we are interested in the success of our country, it is important for us to come into a conversation The ball is now in the court of the Democratic Alliance to make a decision about whether they are part of the government of national unity or they are a quasi-opposition party within the executive, based on what we've just learned when we were following the deliberations at a press briefing convened by the Democratic Alliance.
Ms. Bhengu-Motsiri from the SABC, just the essence of why is the ANC not taking the punitive measure of chucking out the Democratic Alliance? Because, as you say, they act like some quasi-opposition within the government of national unity. When are you having a national executive committee to ultimately take a decision whether you keep the DA or you look elsewhere at the Economic Freedom Fighters, at Action SA, to bring them on board? Hence, you voted with them in the second fiscal framework of the budget that was voted upon Parliament, that was ultimately withdrawn by the Minister of Finance. Why don't you just look elsewhere?
Well, I suppose, the National Executive Committee will be convening in mid-July. The National Working Committee will do a thorough reflection of the implications, political and governance implications, of what was articulated by the Democratic Alliance today. And that meeting is taking place on Monday, this coming Monday. And certainly, I'm sure we will provide a comprehensive response and analysis of what this means for the government of national unity, for the work we're doing in Parliament, and for our strive to ensure that there's a cohesion in society by getting these parties to work together in line with the adopted statement of intent, which, by the way, there isn't anything in the Constitution and the statement of intent that suggests that the President must co-govern with the leader of the Democratic Alliance. And secondly, we continue to remind the DA we are not in a coalition with the Democratic Alliance. We are in a government of national unity that is led by the African National Congress. It is the ANC that invited all political parties that made it to Parliament to join the ANC in constituting a government for the sake of national unity and the people of South Africa.
All right, Mathengi, thank you so much, Mulukumlo, here from ANC-DA. It's been a year since this government of national unity has been constituted, and we have already seen instances wherein there were tensions that played out in the public, primarily between the ANC and the Democratic Alliance. So this is not the first one. I therefore just want to check whether, from the ANC's point of view, whether, considering the fact that John Steenhuisen, in fact it was Helen Zille, just now saying that the ANC has essentially defied all the points or clauses in the statement of intent. Do you see it as the ANC and make an introspection to say, perhaps here and here we might have overstepped, or from your point of view, you have always been right, and it is the DA that's they're crying babies. But also, given the fact that seemingly these tensions, except when it came to the issue of the VAT increase, we saw the Freedom Front Plus joining the DA in opposing that proposal. What is your relationship with other parties that are in the government of national unity?
Well, let me start with the first point. Thank you, Muluku. The performance of the ANC, or the conduct of the ANC in respect of the adopted statement of intent, and the conduct of other parties to the GNU, you will have to come to an independent conclusion on your own. Let me give one or two examples. The Democratic Alliance, it's not the ANC that went out of the statement of intent and mobilized against transformation policies. Go to the statement of intent. The statement of intent is very clear. It says that all the parties that are signatories to that statement of intent will not tamper with redress policies. It It's there in black and white. The DA has been to court, I don't know how many times, challenging the Land Expropriation Act, challenging the Bella Act, challenging the NHI Act, challenging the employment equity legislation. Those are 4 major transformation legislations. And they, of course, furiously campaigned against broad-based black economic empowerment. And I think it is for South Africans to figure out who is violating the agreements and the agreements that are contained in the statement of intent. It is the DA that went abroad to the United States to complain about these redress policies and lobby other like-minded right-wing organizations in the US. It's not the African National Congress. And of course, we all know the implications of that, because that is really a violation of what patriotism should be all about, and the respect for the sovereignty of every country, and the respect for the spirit and the letter of the statement of intent, especially for parties that are signatories thereto. One could go on and on and on, in respect of that. So the DA now says they will not be participating in the national dialogue because the national dialogue is a farce. And the conversation about the national dialogue has taken place with the DA on several occasions in the bilaterals between the ANC and the DA. So the shift has got to be asked of the DA as to what has occasioned the shift, because if the shift is propelled by the removal of a deputy minister who apologized to the president for how he conducted himself, traveling abroad without seeking the required permission by the head of state. If this is about that, then South Africans again can judge for themselves.
Are you happy with the drama around Minister Simelane and Minister Nkabane? Because they are pointing out those two to say they must go. I mean, do you have confidence given allegations around them? Do you still have confidence in those two? I mean, Minister Nkabane is accused of having lied to Parliament.
The ANC has confidence in the ability of Parliament and the ability of the President to resolve those two matters. Starting with that of Dr. Nobuhle Nkabane, the Minister of Higher Education, there is a process that is underway in Parliament. And we, as Luthuli House, we've been kept abreast of those developments through the work that is being done, diligent work that is being done by the portfolio of higher education. We believe that the ANC, the caucus of the ANC, is doing the work that the ANC expects us to do to ensure that there's robust executive accountability and oversight. That process is underway in Parliament. We have to respect it. On the matter of Minister Simelane, that process again is underway. It's a process of the President. And I'm not certain that the DA can utilize those two matters to try and draw a cloud around the removal of Andrew Whitfield. Those matters are very different in terms of their merits.
Some from the SABC here. Just a pointed question. Have you had a conversation with the President, particularly noting the pending discussion, the pending announcement of the Democratic Alliance? What is the President's view? What is his thinking? Is he perhaps rethinking and going off to Spain to have that engagement with the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres? Would have loved to have an engagement with him, noting that he is holding the presidency of the G20 as the head of state of South Africa. Is he still heading to Spain, rethinking that particular posture of redeploying Minister Lamula there and taking off with Nkwazi later on today?
Well, I wouldn't know because I don't work in the presidency, but we can say and see, we hope the President is doing exactly that, to go and represent our country in Spain and doing the work, that much needed work that we need to do in the geopolitical environment, and also considering the fact that under his presidency, South Africa's posture and standing internationally has remarkably increased. And for the president to delay his trip out of respect for domestic issues or issues in the domestic environment is laudable. But we do believe that he should be allowed to go and do his work and not be deterred by what, honestly, at best, are the games that are being played by a party such as Democratic Alliance. We must remind South Africans the ANC is not in a coalition with the Democratic Alliance.
Lastly, Ms. Bhengu-Motsiri, on the issue of them saying there isn't confidence in the president and would be planning a vote of no confidence if things don't change, what is the ANC's view of this pending vote of no confidence against the president and the DA?
Well, I think we will, cross that bridge when we get there, but we can say for sure we will defend against that motion. And I can say with certainty that motion will not pass in the House. And if the DA decides to do that, they're essentially saying that they've walked out of the government of national unity. We know that they've been planning, or a particular group within the DA have been planning the matter of passing a motion of no confidence. We were expecting that was what was going to be spoken about. But we do want to say that should they take that course of action, the ANC is very ready to make sure that we defend. Look at how the president was elected by the House. A very large percentage of support, which also is corroborated by a number of pollsters that speak about stability in South Africa, and in large part as a result of the character, the posture, and the maturity that is found in President Cyril Ramaphosa.
So just to make sure I understand you correctly, to say that should the DA dare sponsor a no confidence motion in the president, it would have defined itself outside the GNU. That perhaps, am I correct to interpret it to be meaning that you will effectively take a decision to kick them out?
I'm not certain that you can be part of a family and say, I want to disown my mother and my dad and still stay in the family. I think that at that point, the DA would have taken a decision that they are leaving the government of national unity, which is led by the ANC, and where the country is led by President Cyril Ramaphosa. I think that will be a decision of the DA. But I suppose for all intents and purposes, that is how South Africans will read that moment, if it does happen.
The ANC's national spokesperson, they, in response, of course, to that all-important DA ultimatum there for President Cyril Ramaphosa to either sack two of his ministers as a measure to go against his axing of DA MP Mr. Whitfield.